What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in just a few hours after this video goes live, the World Cup final will be kicking off with Argentina taking on Spain. So I'm going to be using a football-themed team in the Open Great League with Hisuian Electrode as the ball, Cinderace, which is obviously based off a footballer, and then Hitmonlee because, well, he kicks things, I guess. I was already struggling to think of a third Pokemon for this team, but I guess this will have to do. Now, clearly this is not the strongest team to use in the Go Battle League, but surprisingly, I was actually able to pick up quite a few crazy wins with it, going positive in several sets. So with that being said, let's just get straight into the question of the day. What other upcoming real-life events should I try and turn into a GPL theme team? And if you've got any suggestions, let me know what Pokemon I should use for said theme. Now with that being said, let's just get into the battles now. I also go into the first battle, leading Hisuian Electrode into Shiny Shadow Kingdra. So this is going to be a decent matchup for us, definitely the most comfortable Pokemon for us to be taking on this Shadow Kingdra, because of course they can't full send a Surf, they have to settle for the Swift. However, the opponent going to shield the first charge move, they actually farm up quite a lot, so I'm going to respect it just in case they're on Outrage. They do just throw a Swift here, but this means there's going to be another Swift, which I can of course tank, and now I will go straight for Wild Charge. The opponent actually going to swap out into a Tinkaton, very nice catch there. Wild Charge still going to deal decent damage, and now I will come in with the Cinderace. Of course, the opponent does have super effective Bulldoze for coverage, however, it's not going to deal too much damage here, they're not going to reach back-to-back charge moves, and so I commit to a full farm down. But not only that, I'm going to come out 2 away from a Focus Blast, and Focus Blast is not respected, it gets the KO up against the Shiny Shadow Kingdra. Typically, that Pokemon would be completely walling the Cinderace if we didn't have the Focus Blast coverage, but now we're still in a tricky situation, as of course they do get the fast move farm down, they have an energy advantage, and Hitmonlee needs to swap out, make the catch onto our own Hisuian Electrode. Of course, the opponent gets the KO with a Wild Charge, and here, honestly, I could have committed to a full farm down, but I'm going to play this super safe. We've got back-to-back Blaze Kicks. First one grabs the final shield, and so, of course, Blaze Kick number 2, even without a debuff to their defense, will be taking them out there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there, into the next battle, we're going to see Morpeko in the lead. So this is going to be a decent matchup for me because the opponent can't go for an Aura Wheel with the first charge move, as of course that would be resisted. So they fire off the Psychic Fangs. I'm now going to wait one turn just to make sure the opponent does not make a catch. Fire off the Energy Ball. Energy Ball is going to drop their defense, so I'm able to snipe them with the Shadow Hitmonlee. They're now going to come in with a Shadow 2 cannon, which of course absolutely destroying me with the peck damage. I'm going to full send a close combat, might as well drop my defense there, give them slightly less farm, although actually I don't think that made any difference there. It still would have taken them 2 pecks to farm me down even without that defense drop. But either way, I'm going to come back in with the Electrode. I'm actually going to look to double shield here and commit to a full fast move farm down, and what this probably will do is force the opponent to swap into their final Pokemon. So they go for a Drill Peck, and their final Pokemon going to be for Alligator. So Electrode, super important for this battle. Energy Ball going to be no shielded, which they had to tank that first move because I wasn't going to full send a Wild Charge, but it put them into perfect farm down range. We get the farm down with the Cinderace, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there, into the next battle, we're going to see Morpeko in the lead once again. So once again, pretty decent matchup for me here in the lead. The opponent this time around going to go straight for the Psychic Fangs, not going to look to overfarm at all. But again, we don't have to shield that at all. We are now going to go for the Energy Ball straight away, and let's see if they want to no shield again. Energy Ball is going to be shielded this time around, and we also don't drop their defense. This time around, they could be going for the Aura Wheel, so I will shield, respect it, but they bait with a Psychic Fangs there. At this point, we are now going to be double debuffed, so Psychic Fangs might actually threaten to put me into range where they can farm me down, but I'm able to grab both shields before the opponent does that. So at this point, I'm happy to just no shield here. The opponent goes for another Psychic Fangs. I'm expecting they might try and snipe me here, but they do. They swap into Talonflame, and unfortunately for me, I just have no answer to a Talonflame at all. So at this point, we force a CMP tie. Close combat does huge damage, actually. And let's see, of course, the opponent will get the KO. They go for a Flame Charge, boosting up their attack stat. Hopefully, I can Fire Spin, farm them down before they get to another charge move here, but unfortunately it looks like we're barely not able to do so. So I'm going to be forced to use up my final shield, as of course they're already boosted. They do just go for another Flame Charge there, but their final Pokemon is going to be a Toxapex, so I swap into Electrode, and this is huge for me. We get the Wild Charge. Wild Charge, huge damage. Does a Pyro Ball get the knockout from this range? Pyro Ball resisted. No, they survive with 1 HP and a Dream there. That is so unfortunate, and as a result, they can fire off the Brine, take out the Cinderace, and unfortunately I lose that game. But GG's opponent there into next battle. We're going to see Poliwrath in the lead. Great lead matchup for me. The opponent going to be safe swapping into Tinkaton, so this is fine with me. We can come in with the Cinderace. The opponent going to fire off the Bulldoze straight away, and now we can look to overfarm ever so slightly and then fire off the Pyro Ball. Pyro Ball is going to be shielded by the opponent, which is quite surprising. At this point, I'm also going to look to shield here, and hopefully I can now just commit to a full Fire Spin farm down. They get the debuff, but it doesn't matter as we do get that full farm down. Can we reach a Focus Blast? Unfortunately not, so we will just have to settle for a resisted Pyro Ball, and unfortunately that doesn't really do much damage at all. I'm now going to come in with the Electrode. I'm going to no-shield this. This will be an Icy Wind. However, it is super effective, but it's non-stab. It doesn't deal too much damage. They swap out into Aegislash, and usually for most fighting type Pokemon, this would be quite problematic, but we've got access to Blaze Kick, and Blaze Kick, even non-stab, does honestly respectable damage up against Aegislash. This must not be a Super XL Aegislash at all, because that was insane damage there. At this point, I'm going to look to shield. The opponent probably has back-to-back Shadow Balls, so even though we've got a lot of energy on the Electrode, what I'm actually going to do here is swap out, catch the charge move, force all of their energy, and now this is going to force the opponent to swap back into the Poliwrath. We are lagging quite a bit here, which is unfortunate for us, but the opponent gonna be swapping back into Poliwrath. We can now look to overfarm, fire off the Close Combat. Close Combat easily gets the KO there. We're just 2 away from a Blaze Kick, and Blaze Kick, we've already seen, does decent damage here. Blaze Kick will get the knockout, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there into the next battle. We see Electrode into Credilli. So this, of course, not a great matchup for me, and they're also on Acid, which makes it even worse for me. I'm going to stay in. I will fire off the Energy Ball on the CMP Tire with a Rock Tomb. An Energy Ball is actually going to be shielded. That is very surprising. They should not be shielding that because it's just not going to do too much damage there. I'm going to swap out now into my Cinderace, and I will reach a Pyro Ball on the CMP Tire, but the opponent going to bank the energy and now swap into Jellicent, which, of course, is going to completely wall me. However, it also completely walls the Hitmonlee, and Cinderace does still have a better matchup than the Hitmonlee, so honestly not that bad to bait it out. As you can see, we're actually able to get them very low there into the red health range already. Surf is going to get the knockout. Unfortunately, Electrode is fairly low, so I probably would try and commit to a 1 shield fast move farm down, but honestly, we probably don't even get off 2 charge moves there if we do that. So now we're going to come in with the Hitmonlee, and of course I will have to shield. They don't actually go for a Rock Tomb, which is crazy for a Credilli user, but we're now going to see a Clefable in the back, and unfortunately, even these Fairy Winds are dealing huge damage to us, but like I said, Blaze Kick, decent damage here, even though it's non-stab, and we will actually be able to 2-shot a Clefable here with non-stab Blaze Kick damage. So Blaze Kick number 2, I'm now going to swap into Electrode, the opponent committing to the farm down, but we actually get to another Wild Charge. That is huge for me. Wild Charge gets the KO. They come back in with the Credilli, but unfortunately we're too low, and the opponent is going to outpace me to the charge move anyways, so of course, Grass Knot takes out the Shadow Hitmonlee, and unfortunately I lose that game. But GG's opponent into the next battle. We see Araquanid in the lead. So, of course, they're on Bug Bite, which is resisted by my backline. However, we don't have the best matchups there, just because they're going to have Water Pulse, which is super effective into Cinderace, and just Hitmonlee can't really hit for that much damage there with the resisted damage from low kicks and close combats. But the opponent is going to swap out there, trying to catch maybe a Blaze Kick, but we can go for close combat. That does huge damage, but it actually doesn't quite get the KO there. Honestly, that surprised me. I thought that would get the clean one-shot, but now we're forced to throw another Blaze Kick there. We can just barely reach another Blaze Kick into the Araquanid coming back in, and that does respectable damage. I'm now going to swap into Cinderace. We've only seen Water Pulse so far, so I'm going to shield, and they do full send once again. So potentially, they might not actually be on Bubble Beam there, which is quite handy for me because that would be quite a pain in the ass. But we're now going to go for the Pyro Ball. Pyro Ball is going to be shielded, and the opponent does a good job of overfarming here. The opponent going to full send the Aura Wheel. I honestly can't tell you how much energy they've got right now, but I was keeping track in game in real time, so I'm gonna swap out, catch onto my 1 HP Shadow Hitmonlee. Of course, Aura Wheel gonna get the knockout there. We can now come back in with the Electrode, and because they're double boosted, I don't even want to tank a Psychic Fang, so I'm gonna throw straight away. I do wait 1 turn just to make sure they don't catch the charge move, but now I can outpace them to the Wild Charge. I probably could have committed to a farm down once again, but again, no risk taken. Wild Charge gets the clean KO there on like 1 HP, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see Malamar in the lead. So, this is going to be a fairly neutral matchup here. I'm assuming I can probably live a foul play and reach back-to-back wild charges. So, I'm going to no-shield the first charge move. And because they throw an alignment, I will actually get to back-to-back wild charges one turn before the opponent gets to back-to-back foul plays. The opponent is going to swap out and catch the next one onto their fortress. But that's okay with me. We can now come in with the Cinderace, snipe with them with just 3 fire spins there, farming them down before they even reach a charge move. Now, the opponent's going to come in with a Seismitoad, which, of course, not ideal for me, but they will have to full send an Earth Power. I'm actually going to shield anyways, and they do full send. Now, speaking of full send, we are going straight for Focus Blast here. Focus Blast is unfortunately shielded by the opponent there, but honestly, baiting there probably wasn't ideal. So the opponent, we tried to make a catch there, doesn't work out for us. We have to save our shield for Hitmonlee, but they bait with the Icy Wind this time around, and not only that, they then swap to catch a resisted Pyro Ball, where it's now neutral damage onto Malamar, and that might have just put them into perfect farm down range. It's going to be super close. I believe they're one away, but we get that farm down. We come out with a close combat loaded. Honestly, that worked out perfectly for me, as close combat takes out the Seismitoad, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I see Electrode into Licky Licky. So, of course, I do have Hitmonlee in the back, which I would prefer to be aligned here. But honestly, it's not that dominant of a matchup because a Body Slam is going to do, like, honestly, 60% of Hitmonlee's health there. And a Shadow Ball would very almost one-shot it. So, at this point, I'm going to go for a Wild Charge. Wild Charge, going to be no-shielded by the opponent. I then swap, and unfortunately, the opponent swaps out at the same time into a Shadow Kanto Marowak, which obviously not great for Cinderace, but we do grab a shield with the Pyro Ball, but they can just mud slap Fummy all the way down. Now, I should just barely live a Bone Club, but they don't throw straight away, so that's fine with me. Edge Ball should be grabbing the final shield. And now, of course, all shields are down. We've got a 2-shield advantage and a Shadow Hitmonlee. Honestly, unless they've got like a Ghost-type Pokemon in the back where they obviously just double resist the Fighting-type damage, then I should be looking fairly good here. So at this point, I'm going to look to overfarm, but they do. They've got a Galarian Corsola, Blaze Kick. I keep calling it a Fire Punch. I believe Fire Punch and Blaze Kick are like basically the same move anyways. Either way, doesn't matter. They had the Corsola, there was nothing we could do, and so I just concede the match. Now into the next battle, GG's to that previous trainer, by the way. We're going to see a shiny Shadow Fortress. So of course, I'm double resisting the Volt Switch damage. They go for a Rock Tomb, they debuff my attack stat, they then swap into a Cast form, so of course, I'm going to come in with the Hitmonlee. Now, expecting Edge Ball and Rock Weather Ball. Rock Weather Ball would be resisted damage there, so they have to go for the harder hitting, slightly more energy charge move, which does now allow me to hit back with a Blaze Kick. Or sorry, actually, I think we went for a close combat there. My commentary is a little bit off here. I am recording this at like 2 AM. I just watched the England versus France game. Honestly, that felt like it was a charity match. I was waiting for like Mini Minter and Angry Genius to be subbed on. Honestly, such a crazy game there. But either way, Blaze Kick is going to grab the final shield. I've got a Fire-type Pokemon, but all shields are down. Cinderace not going to appreciate a Sand Tomb, especially not a Rock Tomb, so we just come in with the Electrode. We are debuffed here, but Wild Charge still gets the KO. Their final Pokemon gonna be Seismitoad, and we've got the Edge Ball with debuff, but once again, doesn't matter. It gets the knockout. We didn't even need the Cinderace for that battle, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there, into the next battle, you can see another Morpeko in the lead. So once again, pretty decent matchup for me, but if the opponent does want to play out the 2-shield scenario, it does actually get quite annoying for us. So we're going to let the first move go through, always will do, as it will just be a Psychic Fangs. I mean, Morpeko, I think, does learn, like, Outrage, but either way, Outrage isn't going to one-shot us. Edge Ball does big damage, and again, we're able to snipe them with the Shadow Hitmonlee. Now, they're going to come in with a Jumpluff, but that's fine with me. We've got access to Blaze Kick, and whilst, again, like I mentioned, not the hardest hitting move from Shadow Hitmonlee, it does a lot of damage there, over 50% to a bulky Jumpluff. On the other hand though, Energy Ball does get the knockout there, which is not ideal. I'm going to come in with the Cinderace, and they've got a Quagsire in the back. I'm able to swap out at the last second there. Switch Hole just barely coming up in time, able to catch the Aqua Tail, which is nice for me, but still a bit of a tricky situation. I'm going to full send an Edge Ball. Edge Ball should be grabbing a shield here from the opponent, and it does exactly that. At this point, I'm going to look to shield here. Likely they do end up baiting from this range. Aqua Tail wouldn't quite get the KO there, but the opponent makes a brilliant catch there, catching a double resisted Edge Ball. But we are now going to look to try and bank another move there. We actually swapped out just slightly sooner than that. That way the opponent does not reach the acrobatics up against the Cinderace. Of course, I'm going to have to shield. I'm one away from the Focus Blast, but we don't quite get there in time. That is unfortunate as Aqua Tail will get the knockout, and now we were one away from the Energy Ball as well. If we got to the Focus Blast, that would have been game over, but the opponent can just settle for another Aqua Tail, taking out the Electrode from that range, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see Quagsire in the lead this time around. So this is definitely where we want to see it for this team. Hitmonlee's still going to have a decent matchup here. I mean, not great because I will have to shield absolutely everything. But the opponent's going to swap into a Licky Licky. They farmed up to a Shadow Ball already. I'm going to shield the opponent base with a Body Slam. Not ideal for me here. But I'm now just going to look to full send a close combat. I don't know if Blaze Kick would have got the knockout from that range. Probably not. So I think we might as well just go for the close combat there. I still have to shield absolutely everything anyways, and now I will fire off the Blaze Kick. Blaze Kick from this range should now, actually doesn't quite get the KO, but it puts them into farm down range, which is ideal. They come back in with the Quagsire, and they don't throw straight away. That's fine with me. We can full send a close combat. Close combat, not shielded, gets the KO. Their final Pokemon gonna be a Kanto Ninetales, and I do technically resist everything they can throw here, assuming they're not gonna be on like Scorching Sands or Psyshock, which they're probably not gonna be, as Energy Ball did get buffed this season. So the opponent is just gonna spam out these Weather Balls. I'm going to full send the Focus Blast. This should guarantee the final shield or the knockout. And then, of course, I have a Wild Charge already loaded on the Electrode. All I have to do is win CMP, which I'm fairly confident I will. So we come back in, and yes, we win the CMP tie. Wild Charge will connect. It gets the KO up against the Ninetales, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see a Charger Bug in the lead. So, not a great lead matchup for me. Again, my backline is going to resist the Bug typing. So, I swap out. I try to catch a X-Scissor onto my Shadow Hitmonlee. Unfortunately, doesn't work out for me, and I will have to shield there. And now the opponent is going to catch a Blaze Kick onto Florges. But, like I mentioned already, Blaze Kick, even when it's neutral, still dealing decent damage, and it will two-shot a Florges here. And the opponent is actually not going to bother shielding. They allow me to win switch advantage, but they do have quite a lot of energy on the Charger Bug. Now, I'm going to come in with the Cinderace. The opponent, of course, going to go for Discharge. I did think about trying to catch the move onto my Electrode, but the opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Diggersby. So, of course, Energy Ball is going to hit for super effective damage. First one, grabs the shield. I don't know if we got a debuff there. I don't think we saw it that time around. I felt like I heard it in the battle, but maybe I'm thinking of a different battle. But either way, we're going to go for a second Energy Ball here. And of course, the opponent going to no-shield this time around. Okay, this time we do get the debuff, but probably a little bit too late for me here, as I'm going to no-shield the Fire Punch, as of course, the Charge Bug did have a lot of energy. I needed to commit to a full farm down, come out with back-to-back Charge Moves, and survive one more Volt Switch worth of damage as well, which just never was going to happen, so I didn't bother throwing. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see Tinkaton in the lead. So this is going to be a decent matchup for me, as of course Gigaton Hammer is going to be resisted. They have to go for Bulldoze here, and Bulldoze not going to deal too much damage, but they do actually drop my defense. And of course, I'm now going to have to go for a Wild Charge. Wild Charge going to drop my defense by 2 more stages. The opponent makes a brilliant read deck, realizing I'm going to throw the next Wild Charge straight away. They actually catch it where it's resisted onto Gastrodon, where of course, if we went for the Energy Ball there, we would have got the one shot. But unfortunately, now they do grab a shield there. Oh, sorry, they do use a shield and then commit to a full fast move farm down. I'm going to come in with the Hitmonlee. I'm just going to go straight for a Blaze Kick. I realize this is resisted. It probably won't quite get the KO, but I'm hoping Cinderace can sweep in the end game. Now, unfortunately, the opponent going to have a Shadow Dusknoir in the back. There's not much I can do here. I am behind on energy. Shadow Punch gets the KO there. They can just Astonish farm me down. There's nothing I can do, and so I just allow them to farm me down, and unfortunately I lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. We're going to see Togekiss in the lead. So decent matchup for me, but actually not as dominant as you might expect. I don't think I win CMP in this matchup. It might be close actually. I don't really know. I don't really play either of those Pokemon too often. But either way, we're going to swap out into Cinderace as the opponent comes in with Tinkaton. So once again, we can just no-shield the Bulldoze there. However, unfortunately, I believe they threw after 6, so I can't go for 3 Fire Spins first. We go for the Pyro Ball after 2. We get the KO anyways. They come back in with the Togekiss, and we're not done just yet, as we reach another Pyro Ball, and this should grab the final shield from the opponent. Sorry, the first shield from the opponent. My commentary is all over the place right now, but the final Pokemon is going to be an Aegislash. So at this point, we're going to fire off the Wild Charge. Last time around, I did swap out of this matchup because I was debuffed there, but this time around, I'm not debuffed in my attack stat, so I go for another Wild Charge. Wild Charge, going to get them fairly low. I'm just going to bank 2 more Wild Charges. I'm going to shield this. I'm then going to swap into my Shadow Hitmonlee, as the opponent is going to fire off a Shadow Ball. We're going to swap into Hitmonlee. We actually get them very low there. The opponent comes back in with the Togekiss. I'm going to look to shield here as they fire off a Side Shock, and now I'm going to go for a Blaze Kick. However, this could be problematic for me if the opponent commits to a full fast move farm down. Unfortunately, I'm going to lose the game, but no, they don't commit to it. Instead, they fire off the Side Shock, but Electrode has back-to-back charge moves. I'm pretty sure the Aegislash banked a Shadow Ball. However, they're now back in the shield form, which means Electrode wins CMP. Wild Charge, easily going to get the KO here, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there into the next battle. I can see Electrode into a Shadow Politoed. So that's a great matchup for me. The opponent safe swaps into Umbreon, so we can respond with our Hitmonlee. Now, the opponent could be on Psychic. I'm going to shield. The opponent is actually on Psychic there, and they drop my defense, which is, of course, not ideal. But here, I'm just going to full send the Close Combat. Close Combat, gotta be no shielded. They come back in with that Shadow Politoed, and I'm full sending once again. This time around, they probably will end up shielding here. The opponent is going to shield, but it is a CMP tie. So at this point, a Weather Ball will very comfortably take us out there. We can come back in with the Electrode, their final Pokemon. Gonna be a Nidoqueen, which isn't a great matchup for Cinderace. However, I can force a CMP tie with potentially either an Earth Power or a Poison Fang. And honestly, at this point, I probably just need to apply some fast move pressure with the Fire Spin damage. I need to put them into range where an Energy Ball will KO. So this should just be another Poison Fang, of course. This will get the knockout, but Energy Ball will get the KO as well. And the opponent, they know that. They try to catch it onto their Shadow Politoed, but we can just farm up to back-to-back charge moves. Wild Charge guarantees the knockout there, and Energy Ball from this range up against the Nidoqueen will also get the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I can see Guzzlord in the lead. That is not a great matchup for me. Of course, I do have Shadow Hitmonlee in the back. However, it's not going to be the most comfortable matchup for the Hitmonlee either. So here, I'm going to farm up to back-to-back Wild Charges. The opponent actually allows me to get there. So the first one does decent damage. Second one will get them fairly low. And then I'm not going to swap into Hitmonlee. I'm going to come in with the Cinderace. I should be able to tank anything. But the opponent actually comes in with a Blastoise, which, of course, definitely not ideal for me. However, we're actually able to grab a shield advantage with the Cinderace. Honestly, I don't know what coverage they're expecting there, but either way, happy to grab that shield advantage. We can now come in with the Electrode, and this is just going to be a Hydro Cannon. So this, of course, is resisted damage. I'm able to tank that. I'm able to reach an Energy Ball. Probably should have gone for Wild Charge, just because it will do more damage. I think Energy Ball probably KOs anyways, but now we come in with the Shadow Hitmonlee. Of course, Hydro Cannon going to do more damage than, like, if they're running Sludge Bomb, maybe, but we're going to shield here. The opponent is on Sludge Bomb, but unfortunately, I think they've got 100 energy. So this is going to be another Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb going to get me very low. They come back in with the Blastoise. I am resisting the rollout damage, so that does allow me to overfarm. I throw it as late as possible. Blaze Kick gets the KO, but they've got a Talonflame in the back. In close combat, it's resisted damage. Honestly, respectable damage there, but we can just come in with the Electrode, be farmed down by the Incinerates, and unfortunately we lose that game. But GG's to opponent there into the final battle of this video, once again leading into a Tinkaton. So again, we are going to look to stay in this matchup here. The opponent is going to help me out by going for a Bulldoze straight away. Bulldoze is not going to get the debuff this time around, which does make it a lot more comfortable for me, because now I can throw a Wild Charge, and I don't actually need to throw immediately, but I will just throw straight away anyways, as Wild Charge number 2 will guarantee the KO. This time they don't make the catch there, which is ideal. They're going to come in with a Fire, which is fine with me. I'm going to swap out into Cinderace. I'm trying to bait out their final Pokemon here, because of course we do have Shadow Hitmonlee, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Mandibuzz, and honestly, I do not expect them to shield this, so you know what, might as well full send. Focus Blast, huge damage there. That is non-stab damage, by the way, up against a Mandibuzz of all Pokemon. We can come in with Electrode. I'm actually not going to bother shielding here. The opponent is at back-to-back foul plays, but now of course I'm resisting all of the fast move pressure. Shadow Hitmonlee, not the bulkiest Pokemon, actually far from it, but I will be able to live the fast move pressure. I should be able to commit to the farm down. The opponent just concedes the match there. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.